Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking into some genuinely unsettling accounts. They all come from this one source, basically a collection of really chilling personal stories.
Right, and these aren't just stories, they're presented as things people actually went through.
Exactly. So our plan today is to walk through a few of these specific accounts. We want to get into the key events, the details the source really emphasizes, and, what makes them hit so hard. Especially that feeling when something awful just crashes into a normal day.
Yeah, what's really striking is how the storytellers describe that buildup, those specific moments where things just flip from totally normal to absolutely terrifying, and you feel the lasting impact. It's presented as lived experience, which gives it this profound sense of unease.
Okay, let's get into this first one. It really nails that contrast you mentioned. It starts off like the perfect little vacation. Mm-hmm. This couple, they're looking for somewhere quiet, right? Mm-hmm. And they find this bed and breakfast in rural Vermont. The source paints this picture. Old, beautiful place.
Yeah.
Run by these incredibly nice, kind of elderly owners.
Mm-hmm. They get there in the evening, tired, hungry. And the owners, they just go above and beyond. The old man shows them the room, a honeymoon suite, no less.
Nice.
And they try to say no, but he insists on making them supper. Red potatoes, chicken fried steak, toast. They end up eating with the owners, chatting, finding out they actually own the B&B. It's all described as just really warm,
Yeah.
welcoming.
Which makes what happens next feel so off. While they're talking, this guy comes out of a bathroom down the hall. And the source is specific here. He looked troubled, like maybe upset, maybe on drugs, making these sort of grunting noises, stomping down to his room.
And the key thing,
The owner's reaction.
they smile, but the couple telling the story could see they were uncomfortable. Like, this is someone they knew, someone unwelcome, but they were just putting up with it.
That's the first little crack, isn't it? In that perfect, cozy picture, it just hangs there unexplained, creates this immediate low-level anxiety. Yeah, and the couple, they don't ask, feel the awkwardness, So that little seed of dread just sits there. And later that night, it definitely starts to grow. Inside their own room,
What happens?
they hear this faint voice from the room right next door saying, "Not again." One of them thought it sounded like a man, the other a woman.
Ambiguous.
And right after that, distinct sounds. Heavy furniture being moved from that same room.
Okay, so a possible plea, then definite physical disturbance, right next to where they're trying to sleep. The source layers these things, putting you right there with them, feeling that unease build.
Exactly. Hours go by, they drift off. Then the husband gets shaken awake. Violently.
Yeah.
But it's something different this time.
Oh!
A gasp and a sound of, trouble. But from a room on the other side of theirs. Not the first room.
So now it feels like it's on both sides. Or moving. That's smart storytelling in the source, using sound to disorient you.
Totally.
Yeah.
So the husband, he tries to get help, calls the front desk, no answer. Goes downstairs. Nobody. Place is empty. He checks the kitchen, looks outside. Completely deserted. Eerie.
That emptiness is terrifying in itself. Cuts off any help, ramps up the isolation. What then?
He goes back up. About 20 minutes later, they hear it. Someone walking in the hallway, coming right towards their door, and then stopping right outside.
Oh, man. You can just imagine that feeling, hearing the footsteps, the pause.
And then whoever it is tries the doorknob, tries to open their locked door.
No way.
The husband yells out, "Occupied," trying to sound firm, annoyed even, get lost.
Did it work?
The person just continued down the hall towards the stairs. So it wasn't an accident. They were checking rooms or looking for them.
Wow. Okay. That's incredibly tense.
They somehow managed to get back to sleep after that. But the real horror that comes in the morning, they wake up expecting to see the nice old couple, but they're gone. And they find something in the back kitchen.
What did they find?
The source is graphic here.
Yeah.
In the sink, white rags with what looked like blood on them. And in a closet nearby, a mop bucket filled with this very thick-looking red water. The storyteller, the wife, she just freaked out, the source says. Knew instantly something was terribly, terribly wrong. This isn't subtle anymore. It's undeniable evidence of violence.
Right there where they'd felt so welcome just hours before, what did they do?
They looked around the place quickly. Nobody there. They were completely freaked out, obviously. They just left cash on the table, wrote a quick note, and got out of there. Cut the vacation short.
Smart move. Did they call the police right away?
Not immediately. The rest of their trip was normal. But when they got to their next stop, they called the police back in Vermont, told them what they found, urged them to check on the B&B owners.
And the police followed up?
Yeah. Days later, after the couple was already back home, the police show up at their house.
And that's the confirmation.
The horrific confirmation, the police tell them. The elderly couple had been murdered, brutally, and dismembered. And the details the police gave them, the ones recounted in the source, they match exactly what the couple heard that night.
How so?
The woman, found chopped up in the room right next door to theirs, where they heard the faint voice and the furniture moving.
Jesus.
Her husband, found in the room on the other side, where they heard the gasp. His body had been dragged to the bathroom and cut up in the bathtub.
That is just sickening. To have those sounds suddenly make horrible sense.
The source says they felt sick hearing it. They were questioned, of course, took a polygraph, cleared completely, but they kept asking the police what happened. Months later, they got the answer.
Who was it?
It was him. The troubled guy they saw coming out of the bathroom that first night.
Wow. So that first little detail, that flicker of discomfort, it was the killer.
Yeah. Brings it full circle in the most chilling way.
Oh.
But for the couple, the source says they haven't gone on vacation since. It's just a terrifying story about how quickly that feeling of safety can just evaporate, and how those little unsettling things you notice, sometimes they're foreshadowing something awful.
A really potent example from the source. Okay, so that's danger finding you in a place you thought was safe. Secluded even.
Right. The next account we're looking at from the source shifts gears, different setting. A place where trouble isn't exactly unheard of, but this goes way beyond a typical bar fight. We're talking about the back alley behind a bar.
Okay. This one comes from a guy who used to be a bouncer. He's talking about a specific Friday night. Place is packed, busy. You know the scene.
Yeah, he mentions the usual stuff happens, breaking up minor fights near closing time. Says it was pretty routine, part of the job he was used to.
He talks about a couple of things that night. First, there was some guy getting too handsy with a woman. He escorted him out.
Standard procedure.
And he notes most guys he kicked out, they were just drunk, they'd cool off outside, maybe even apologize later. That was the norm he describes in the source.
But then something else happened, closer to closing.
Yeah, something more serious. A different guy threw his drink right at the bartender, hit him in the head with the glass, cut him open.
Wow. Okay, that's escalating.
Definitely. So the bouncer grabs this guy, physically throws him out the door, and the source makes a point here. This guy was different.
How so?
He fought back the whole way, really struggled, almost matched the bouncer's strength apparently. Just had this really violent vibe.
Not just drunk angry, but genuinely violent.
Exactly. And as this guy's sitting there on the sidewalk, after being thrown out, he yells a threat. Something like, "I'll be back," or "You'll see me later." You know, typical tough guy stuff, maybe. But given his behavior...
It lands a bit differently.
Yeah.
What about the bartender?
He was, okay, source says, needed stitches, but the bar was closing up anyway. So the bouncer finishes his duties, cleans up a bit. His buddy, who worked in the kitchen, was leaving at the same time.
They left together?
Yeah, out the back door, down the alley, said they always did that. As they're walking, they both notice someone is walking behind them in the alley.
Oh, great. Did they react?
Source says they just kept walking, maybe hoping the person would turn off or something.
Oh.
They get to the street corner at the end of the alley.
And they split up.
Yeah. The bouncer turned left towards where his car was parked. His buddy crossed the street to keep walking down the alley on the other side.
Did the person follow either of them?
The bouncer says he looked back, checked. He didn't see the person cross the street after his buddy and didn't see them turn down his street either. So he just got in his car, drove home, assumed it was nothing.
Okay. But it wasn't nothing, was it?
No. The real impact hits the next day. Bouncer had the day off. The day after that, right before his shift, the bar owner calls him. Terrible news. His buddy, the guy he walked out with, was attacked in that alley after they separated, stabbed to death.
Oh my God. In the same alley, right after they saw someone behind them?
Exactly. So the bouncer, he immediately tells the police everything about the violent guy he threw out, the struggle, the threat he made.
Seems like a strong lead. Did they catch him?
That's the chilling part in the source material. The police, they never found out who killed his friend. Case went cold.
Wow. Despite the witness, the threat.
Yeah. And the source leaves you with the bouncer's perspective. He quit that bar a couple of years later. The violent guy who made the threat never came back to the bar, never seen again.
But the bouncer thinks it was him.
He says he has this strong feeling, this conviction that it was that guy. Even though the police couldn't prove it, it's the story of like sudden, brutal violence spilling out of the bar and the heavy weight of suspicion, that unresolved grief that the bouncer carries. even without official answers.
That's rough. Danger you meet in one place, literally following you out the door. Okay, our third story from this source. It takes us somewhere that's supposed to be the safest place, home, but during childhood. And it turns terrifying.
Yeah, this one, it's deeply unsettling. The storyteller talks about growing up with just their father out in the middle of nowhere, basically, on this really long, lonely street, only a few other houses scattered around.
Isolated, okay.
And right in the middle of this street in a trailer lived this woman the storyteller just describes as really weird. Well, the source gives this one specific creepy memory. As a kid, walking by her trailer with his dad, and she comes out trying to sell them candy. Just odd. Unsettling for a child.
Okay, yeah, that's strange.
But the real twist, the part that makes your stomach drop. Sometime after they moved onto that street, his father started dating this woman.
No. The weird candy lady.
Yep. Source says she never came over to their house, but the father would go over to her trailer sometimes.
Huh. And the street itself?
The storyteller paints a picture of the whole street being off. Says weird or bad things were always happening there. Strange people around. Mentions one time there was a party down the street where someone literally lit a tree on fire with gasoline.
Okay, sounds like a troubled area.
The overall feeling described is that everyone on that street was weird except for him and his dad. So there's this backdrop of general strangeness and dysfunction. The storyteller even mentions wondering as a kid what his dad saw in that woman, but being too young to really get it.
Right, setting the stage for something bad.
And then comes the night the storyteller says, quote, "Shit at my house became a horror movie."
How did it start?
Simple, but disorienting. He's in his room, second floor. The lights just go out. Power outage.
Maybe, but it felt weird. He goes downstairs, calls for his dad. No answer. Which is strange because they'd just finished eating dinner together moments before.
Right.
So he goes out onto the porch.
What does he see? He sees a police car pull up and stop at the neighbor's house down the street.
Okay.
And then suddenly his father's right behind him on the porch. Scares him. And his dad is frantic, tells him, "We need to go inside now. We need to hide."
Hide from what?
Inside, the father is freaking out. He tells his son that his girlfriend, the weird woman, she's hurt, badly hurt, and someone is coming down the street towards their house.
Oh my God, the kid must have been terrified.
Totally. He agrees to hide. They run upstairs into a dark spare room next to his own bedroom. His dad tries the light switch, nothing. It's dead. He swears.
The darkness just adds to it. The power's out then. Or just in that room.
Seems like maybe the whole house, or at least upstairs. Then the father tells him, "Get down. On the ground, I hear someone coming up the stairs."
Jesus. Into their house?
Apparently. The kid's crying, totally terrified, and then his dad makes this decision. He says, "I'm going to confront them. You stay here. Don't move."
He's going to leave the kid alone.
Yeah. The kid is begging him, "No, Dad, stay here," but the father insists, tells him to stay put, and leaves the room.
Oh, that's awful. Leaving your terrified kid alone while someone might be coming up the stairs.
The source really captures the kid's perspective here.
Yeah.
That wait after his dad left felt like an eternity. Silent at first, then creaking.
Where?
Floorboards creaking right outside his own bedroom door, which is next to the spare room he's hiding in. Like someone is standing right there, listening.
Oh, God.
He just freezes. Utter terror. Wants to call for his dad, but is too scared to make a sound. Then suddenly he hears the person run. Down the hall, then down the stairs. Fast.
So the person left.
Seems like it. Now, the source adds this detail about the house. It was old, and you could apparently get onto the second-story roof from some of the windows.
Okay.
Remembering this, the kid looks out the window of the spare room. It's pitch black outside. He decides he has to get out. He opens the window, climbs onto the roof, and scoots over out of sight from the window.
Brave kid. What next?
He waits there for a bit, then decides to risk it. He jumps down to the lower first-story roof. Then from there, jumps to the ground.
Did he make it okay?
He lands hard, twists his ankle badly. He's hurt, sitting there on the ground in the dark. And that's when, as the source puts it, the scariest thing that has ever happened occurs.
What did he see?
He sees a figure standing maybe 5 feet away, just standing there in the darkness, looking right at him. And then it starts walking towards him.
No, after everything.
His reaction is pure adrenaline. Despite the busted ankle, he scrambles up and just runs up the driveway towards the street, then across to that neighbor's house where he saw the police car earlier.
He made it to the neighbors. What was going on there?
Chaos. People panic. The police were still there. The cops told him they had actually gone over to his house earlier, knocked, but nobody answered the door.
Because they were hiding upstairs.
Right. The kid keeps asking the neighbor, begging them, take me back, I need to get my dad. But the neighbor refuses, tells him to stay put.
So he doesn't know where his dad is?
No, not until much, much later that night. The police come back to the neighbor's house, and they drop the bombshell.
What was it?
They found his father out in the back pasture behind their house, and they arrested him.
Arrested him, why?
Because his father had killed the girlfriend, the weird woman from the trailer, and the whole thing, the person coming upstairs, the hiding, his father was pretending someone else was in the house, trying to create an alibi maybe, or just terrorizing his own son after committing murder.
Oh my God, the person the kid heard, the figure he saw outside, that was his father.
That's the implication. The source says the father got 12 to 20 years for second-degree murder. The storyteller stayed in contact with him over the years.
Did he ever ask him? Why?
He did. He asked him, why did you leave me in that room? Why were you running around trying to scare me? Why pretend to be someone else? And the father's answer.
According to the source, his only answer was, I don't know. Just, I don't know. Leaving the storyteller with this profound trauma, realizing the monster he was hiding from was his own dad, and this complete baffling lack of reason for the terror he was put through. That is incredibly disturbing. The betrayal is just immense.
It really is. Looking at these three accounts together from this source, they're so different on the surface, right? A vacation, a bar alley, a childhood home. But they share these really unsettling themes about how horror just invades the ordinary.
Yeah, you see it in all three. These perceptions of people, the friendly old couple, the usual angry drunk, the weird neighbor, a parent just completely shattered by the violence they're capable of or connected to.
And the source material really drives home the psychological fallout for the people telling these stories. That lasting trauma, not being able to go on vacation again, carrying that certainty about who killed your friend even if no one else knows, or that deep, deep confusion and betrayal from your own father's actions.
It's also about how those little details build up, that feeling of dread before you even know the full picture. And how sometimes, even when you know what happened, the why remains this terrifying, unanswered question.
Absolutely. Thinking about these specific stories, from the source, it really makes you reflect on how fragile our sense of safety actually is. Not just from strangers, but the darkness that can exist in people we encounter every day, maybe even people we trust.
It definitely raises questions. What signs do people miss? Or are some things just unknowable until it's far too late?
It's a heavy thought to leave listeners with, that thin veil between the normal and the horrific.
It is. Really intense stories we've walked through today, straight from the source material. Thank you for joining us for this exploration of these accounts. We really encourage you to maybe sit with these unsettling stories for a bit, reflect on them yourself.
Yeah, they certainly stick with you.
They do. And hey, if you find these kinds of narratives compelling and you want more unsettling content, please do like this video, share it, and subscribe to our channel, Horror Docs. It helps us keep bringing these stories to light. Thanks again for listening.